The Nutmeg Chronicles. Yo, what's going on? It's someone that's no one, and welcome back to today's report. Today's report is coming from Johnny Appleseed off Blue Light. When this happened, the post was made in 2008. The drugs used were nutmeg and alcohol at a dose of 15 grams of nutmeg. The route of administration mixed with pine orange banana juice. Gender, male. Prior experience includes DXM. And the setting, I put not limited. Dude literally is all over the place with these three stories. But this is a trio of stories with varying doses, and we get to see a variety of effects of nutmeg at lower recreational doses and more higher uncomfortable doses. So I think you guys are going to like this one. And without further ado, let's dive right into it. Intro. So my buddy and I wanted to do something. He mentioned nutmeg, and, like you, I was apprehensive. Thus we decided on robo-tripping. Robitussin is no longer available with DXM as the sole ingredient, so I refused to take it the way it is now due to a bad experience with the wrong stuff. We were really bummed. Finally, I agreed to try nutmeg. Experience number 1, 15 grams. We got a 31-gram bottle, smallest size, and separated it with a butter knife. We mixed it with pine orange banana juice, but it still tasted miserably terrible. My buddy is better at chugging, so he got his down in about 10 minutes. It took me longer. This first time, we took spoonfuls and washed them down. But how you should do it is put half or a quarter of your dose into a cup of juice, stir it, and while it's spinning, very quickly drink it so you can get the nutmeg without it sticking to the bottom. So a couple hours later, we felt nothing, and we're like, this is fucking bullshit, what a wasted night. And I was tired and wanted to go to bed. I joked with my buddy about how it would be funny if I called him at 3 a.m. high as fuck, completely joking. So 2:30 a.m. rolls around, and I'd been laying in bed since 11 p.m. having the craziest dreams of my life. I was hallucinating whenever I opened my eyes while looking at the shadows in my room. Strange thoughts zoomed through my head nonstop. My buddy calls me laughing. Doesn't even say anything. Finally he says, "Come over," and I couldn't talk to him. I was like, and finally I managed to say, "I'm freaking the fuck out, I can't talk," and slammed my phone against the wall and went back to bed. Half an hour later, I got out of bed, high as fuck. I called my buddy and said, "I'm coming over." The walk to his place was crazy. Extreme echo sound and choppy vision. It was awesome, and I was very happy and amused with the irony of that joke I'd made earlier about this actually working. Anyway, I made it there, and we both sort of greeted one another with satisfaction and happiness knowing we're both high. Then what we did for the next 5 hours was perfect, and watched Windows Media Player light show to the Tool album 10,000 Days. The light show drew us in, and we were inside a stadium watching the light show perform all around us. Sometimes due to the graphics, it felt like flying. During this time, we were sucking on ice cubes nonstop due to the dry mouth. That is the only side effect. You must have something to drink or ice cubes, or else. After hours of highness, we decided to drive around. It was about 6 a.m. He drove as I was too nervous, and we had no destination. At one point, we got out and hung out by a river, and it was wonderful. I love being outside and high. This was a precedent for a future nutmeg experience number 3. Finally, it pretty much wore off, and we headed home. Slept for hours, planned our next trip. Experience number 2, 18 grams. This is shorter, but worthy of this log. So I had class at like 4 p.m. and knew that it takes 7 hours for nutmeg to onset. Side note, I've come up with the name 7-hour power tower for nutmeg because it can be shortened to 7-HPT, which can be shortened to PT, just a code name. Anyway, I had tickets for the very first showing of Transformers showing at 11 p.m., so I took the nutmeg at 3:30 p.m. before class, in the privacy of my home, of course. This part is important to note as it describes the experience leading up to onset. Class was 2.5 hours, so toward the end, I was feeling a little something. This is completely natural and expected. Sometimes you're not sure if you're feeling anything or not, which means you are. It's like taking a sip of beer. Your mind feels that alcohol, but it's so small, you don't know really. Anyway, I was pissed and bored and wanted to be high, so I tried to pass the time after class. My buddy had taken his while I was in class since he was at work when I took it, so his onset will be later than mine. Finally, it was time to go to the movie, so we took my Jeep. This was awesome because my onset occurred while on the highway. I shouted, "Yes, about goddamn time." Of course my buddy was jealous as I described the crazy tunnel vision I was having of the road and how it seemed I was sitting in a stopped vehicle as everything in front of me came toward me. Anyway, we got there and I ordered the biggest cup they had of ice water. The dude was like, "Well, that's like $8. Are you sure you don't want an actual drink? No one ever gets ice water." I said, "Water please," with a smile. Finally we got in there, and it was a group ticket thing, so all my coworkers were there. This started to freak me out because I was very high now, and was surrounded by people who definitely would not approve of my actions, I'm sure. This dude beside me and I had a conversation about God knows what, but I was nervous about him figuring out I was high. My buddy started getting high at this point too. It was funny, we were a couple of stoners. Anyway, I felt an obligation to make this other guy beside me think I was sober, so I kept trying to think of normal things to say until the movie started. This turned out to be a mistake, as I think he believed me to be on acid by the conclusion of our conversation. Throughout the movie, I was in heaven. I have no clue what the story or plot was, but the graphics of the Transformers were unbelievable, and their voices. I was fucking stunned. It was amazing. I don't even remember anything after that. Oh yeah, my buddy drove us back, and he threw up. Took more than me. Dumbass. Guess that wasn't shorter. What do you know? Experience number 3. 25 grams plus alcohol. A different friend of mine and I were part of a large group going to float down the Illinois River. Stayed in a cabin and stuff. Anyway, we were the first ones there, so I started drinking at 5 p.m. This friend of mine wasn't going to do nutmeg with me. So, everyone started getting there, and we all got really drunk. My friend said that this dude who was coming would probably do it with me, so I asked him while drunk, and he was down. We got in his truck, and we each pretty much took 25 grams. He did it all in one huge gulp. I was impressed. This proved that it's possible. I was gagging and shit, but I got it down. Afterwards, I was like, "Well, just want you to know, we're going to be high as fuck in the morning." He was down. In the morning, we all got ready to board the bus to the start point. I was so high, I thought I might have to go to the hospital. I walked away from everyone and began to freak out. Finally, I laid down with my eyes closed and calmed down quite a bit. The other dude didn't have his onset until much later on the river, which I thought was strange. So we made it to the place, and getting the raft into the river was hard because I had little control over my muscles. One thing that happens is you can see your hands and arms doing stuff you tell them to, but you don't feel it sometimes. So we got in and began floating down the extremely high and fast river, listening to Green River by CCR with a portable boombox we brought. It was sweet, and I felt like this could be cool even though I was way, way high. I remember the CD playing for so long, and it was getting annoying, but I didn't turn it off. That's what I was mainly focused on, the music. Sometimes we wanted to stop to swim, so I would have to grab a tree on the side to try and stop us, but it was merely impossible. I would grab on so hard, but get pulled away. Finally I got one and held on with all my might until I realized we were stopped on the shore and I was still squeezing the tree. Throughout the entire time, I saw people all around me drinking, but I couldn't handle beer. I just chilled out and stayed high. The other guy finally started getting high, and his eyes were so glassed over. He kept saying, "I've never been this drunk before," probably because he forgot we took it. I remember being very concerned for his well-being, since this was my third trip, and I was freaking out, and for his first, he took way too much. Then, he finally threw up. He couldn't handle it, so vomiting helped him. I also threw up, and I remember it tasted so much like nutmeg, and I hated it. But we were better afterward, still high as fuck. At this point, we were both having a good time, and his wife was basically babysitting us. I kept thinking to myself, I cannot wait to be sober, over and over. Finally, we got to the end. I was so happy to be soon going to bed. I had to get this heavy, motherfucking cooler out the bus though, and at first I couldn't lift it. So I tried harder, and when you exert muscle power like that, I just watched my arms lift it and bring it out. Didn't feel it. Kinda tasted it though, which is strange. It was a different sensation. I immediately went to bed and slept for a day. Never do more than 20 grams in the beginning. Ever. Recommendations and notes. Number 1. Find a good way to get the nutmeg down. I like using pine orange banana juice, but there may be a better way. For this takes 20 minutes for me, because think about it. You have to drink like 4 full glasses in a row with this method, and that fills you up too. Also, you're going to have to endure the taste. It's unpleasant, but the high is definitely worth it. Do not get discouraged by the taste, or you'll miss out. Number 2. For your first experience, I recommend 15 grams. If you get the smallest bottle they have, it's 31 grams. So, you can just split it with someone. I pour it out onto paper first to separate it. Just eyeball it. You may have to put the 2 piles together again and split them again to make sure it's accurate. Or use a scale if you're recreationally stocked. Number 3. If you do have to go to the hospital, which will never happen if you stay under 20, there is nothing to worry about law-wise. There was a story on Earwood about a dude who had to go. He did like 40 grams. He told them what he did, and they just laughed. Okay, before we get into this, don't take any of that ending advice to heart. The dosage especially, as it can vary person to person. But this was an interesting trio of reports and covers more of the recreational side of nutmeg, as well as what can happen when you overstep the dosage. But let's break down nutmeg a little first for those of you unaware. Now commonly, you may have heard it as a spice in the kitchen, which, yeah, used in the right way, it can add some nice flavor and kick to a dish. But with that, it isn't surprising to see the taste being awful. But what's actually active inside of nutmeg is actually called myristicin and elemicin, which can be found in some other spices as well, but to a much lesser extent. And the amount of myristicin depends on the type of nutmeg being consumed. That's why we're able to see like these people consume 20 grams of the stuff, as well as just the variability across different trip reports. Now looking at how this drug actually affects someone, we can see that it acts as a pretty mild to normal anticholinergic. Now I say mild because as you've seen here and based off other reports I've covered and read, nutmeg has seriously been considered as a recreational drug. It has been commonly used in prisons way back in the day for anyone looking to get stoned at the time, since of course, that would be a lot easier to get in than like heroin or cannabis. And the euphoria obtained through the use of nutmeg has been compared to a lesser degree of MDMA. But if you don't know what an anticholinergic is, it's basically the basis for most delirium substances, such as datura or diphenhydramine, which, if you know anything about those, you know there's a potential for a ton of shitty physical effects like dehydration, dizziness, muscle spasms, motor loss control, pissing a lot and not being able to, basically a lot of shit that's not going to be comfortable by any means. While the cognitive effects can include confusion, hallucinations, slowness, decreased comprehension, to paranoia, and serious depression. It really does depend on the state of being you end up in, which often it is highly unpredictable, though like I said, typically with nutmeg, it tends to be a bit easier, though when you do overstep yourself, you can end up in a really fucked up state regardless. We can see that here a bit in Johnny Appleseed's report, some from the first story, but more so from the third with a high 25-gram dose. Likewise though, we can see that a euphoric state can be reached, though I think coupled with a good setting. I'm sure set plays a role too here, but I'm not sure if it's as impactful as the setting. We can especially see this when he was finding the music annoying, or how he enjoyed the light show, or even the Transformers movie. But let's bring up some past Nutmeg reports to compare. The first one is the first Nutmeg report, which is by Willow. I was too scared to sleep. Now, she took 15 grams of nutmeg, and based off the experience, I would think she may have overreacted here due to her bodily state. When the nutmeg first came on, she noted feeling stoned and actually euphoric, but as the high continued, she took note that she was somewhat dehydrated, having muscle spasms, and just feeling mentally drained. Because of this, she thought she took too much, and thus didn't want to sleep because of fear of death. I would guess that the physical effects she had weren't that very high a threat, but we can see the cognitive effects in full play here. A little bit of delirium, but it is very comparable to Johnny Appleseed's first story. The next report I want to bring up is our second Nutmeg report, Not at All What I Expected, by Judge Buster, where he took 5 teaspoons but also proceeded to drink alcohol later in. Now an approximate dose would be nice, but we can see he experienced little significant effects. That is, until he went outside and was able to will himself through this historic perspective of the place he lived in. Comparably, Johnny Appleseed noted being outside was very enjoyable on Nutmeg. But as for the alcohol consumption, this occurred later in Judge Buster's trip, and he reported nothing out of the ordinary other than a slight nutmeg afterglow. Unlike here, where the random friend Johnny Appleseed met, drank, and it seemed to potentiate his experience more. And the last comparison I want to bring up is My Nutty Friend Meg by Watman, where he ingested 30 grams. Now with this dosage, it seems there was a lot more confusion and delirium going on with his experience. Also coupled with just a lack of energy, it seems as if the physical effects were overpowering to a degree. His report consists of him mainly falling in and out of sleep, finding some degree of high, coupled with some euphoric hallucinations, but sedation drove his trip. He went to class even, and was able to at least present himself properly in public, but after the experience, he does know he had weird aches in his liver and may have caused damage. And for that, even though nutmeg can present all of these effects, at the end of the day, it's a double-edged sword. You may cut into some of the desired effects, but not without running yourself at risk. So with that, we're going to end it there. If you like this and want to see more nutmeg reports, we can do that. Let me know below. If you like the video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. It's been someone that's no one, and I'll see you guys next time. Peace out.